Here, we're going to have the teacher come up now and give us the lesson for this morning. So without further ado, would you please give Deacon Toles a hand? Thank you very much. Thank you, Deacon Toles, for that kind introduction. I've heard Pastor Smith say this at one time or another, but did not Pastor Short tell us we can have fun every now and then? We can have fun. So, again, thank you, Deacon Toles, for that most kind introduction. I believe it when I see it. Anybody, let's see, everybody in here looks of age, so I think everybody's going to say yes. Anybody remember that show, Ripley's Believe It or Not? Started out in about 1982. I was in high school, me and Brigetta. Most of y'all were, already grown probably. But in any event, that show had odd people on it that they would show. It had odd inventions. It had just about anything you couldn't think about that you would not believe unless you saw it. And when I thought about this lesson, that show quickly popped into my mind because just like that show, in relation to this lesson, some of us don't want to believe it until we see it, especially when it comes to the Lord Jesus Christ. We don't want to believe it until we see it. Is there anyone that can think of a time in your life where you went through something and you had some doubt? Because there's more that we get into this lesson. We're going to be talking about doubting Thomas, but doubting Thomas, he really got that name unfairly. Did he doubt the resurrection? Yes, he did. But not Jesus nor the disciples gave him that name. That was a label that the later church gave him because he didn't believe in their ways. But before we get to that, the disciples, this is quiz time. I keep saying I'm going to have to bring some tangible things for you all to get you all motivated, and I don't have anything today. Well, I can give you a get-out-of-jail-free card. But who can name the 12 disciples? And this is a group thing, not looking for really one particular individual to name all 12 disciples, but let's do this together. And while we're doing it together, I'm going to cheat because I already wrote them down. But I got to make sure we get them all. But let's think about that. Who were the 12 disciples? Matthew, Mark, Peter, Thomas, Judas, can't forget Judas, Bartholomew, yes. Tell me this, though, there was something distinct about half of this group. What was it? They were fishermen, yes, closer than that. Very much closer than that. Something distinct with about half of these 12, give or take. They were brothers, yes. And she said fishermen too a minute ago. Yes, they were brothers. And what I have, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, Peter and Andrew were brothers. James and John were brothers. Thaddeus and Simon were brothers. And Matthew and James being considered the lesser James. So just think about that. I mean, in any point of time, would you want to be considered the lesser of somebody that had the same name of you? But that's how he's referred to in biblical history because there's two James that are often talking about. So for whatever reason, he's been given the title James the Lesser. Well, whatever that means. That probably didn't jive with him very much back then. But those are the 12 disciples. You all named them. Um, I believe it when I can see it. I won't get so much into my testimonies because you all have all heard them when I've said them one time or another, but I can't speak for you all. But I do know that in the course of my life, there's been many times I had doubt up here, especially in the earlier days. Doubt mostly because, and this may be the same with everybody, mostly because it was taking so long for that prayer to be answered. But we know as we grow in time and we learn more about Jesus Christ, he works it out in his time. He's just waiting to see if we're going to keep the faith. But old Doubting Thomas, here's a kind of a contrast, and I'll throw it out there for some discussion. You got the mic, Brother Cornell? Okay. I'll throw it out for discussion. Some say that although Thomas doubted the resurrection, he still believed in Jesus Christ and what he could do. But for whatever reason, he doubted the resurrection. But if we know one thing about Thomas, he was ride or die for Jesus Christ. Let's go. I know they might kill us, but I'm going. So why would he not believe the resurrection? And that information came to him from the disciples who he had been rolling with for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, however long they were together. But at one point, he would not relinquish that thought. Brother Ogles?
Thomas did believe in Jesus Christ, and as we find out later on, when Jesus came into the room with the door being locked, when he came into the room, Thomas died. That's one time he really doubted, and Jesus told him to put his hands in my wounds, and then Jesus, I can't think of the exact words, but Jesus said something to him, and he believed. And I've always had the question of, did he ever touch Jesus before he believed? Because it sounds like to me that he just, when Jesus spoke to him, he believed.
Yes, thank you. You been looking at my lesson plan?
Yeah.
Sister Toles call you about it or something? Because that's definitely in the lesson a little further on down. But we will find out that Thomas would come around, but it was going to take an experience with Jesus Christ before he got there. And I think in this time, in modern time, we don't have Jesus here physically. And we are supposed to rely on what? 2 things that we're supposed to rely on him in absence of his physical body. Faith, yes, that's one of them. And there's one more. You bring it with you every Sunday. The Word, yes. The Word. Well, I guess actually there's 3 things. And the promises that those words give. So the Word and the promises, and then faith. That's what we have today to rely on. We don't have Jesus to come down here this morning and have each one of us put our hand in his side before we believe. We're supposed to already be at that point and trust in his word, what it says about his promises. Can I have someone read verses, let's see, the first few verses, John 11, 14 through 16, and then 5 through 8. The NIV version, okay. Yes.
So he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and for your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him." Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us."
Thank you, Sister Grace. Now, Thomas, who was also known as Didymus, anybody remember what Didymus means back then? Twin, yes. Does anybody know who his twin was? Because I don't know. I couldn't find it. But that name was, he was often referred to as that name as well because it meant twin. So it must have been a twin somewhere along the way. Now, here we are in these first set of scriptures when Jesus tells them that Lazarus is dead. And now there must be a journey. So now early on, Thomas, he's all about that. He's like, let's go, I'm ready. I mean, he and I'm sure the other disciples thought or knew that it was a great chance they would all die as soon as they got over there. But he was willing to go. I mean, let's pack up, let's go right now, was his mindset. And in these scriptures of John, which is one of the synoptic gospels, John is the only one of the 4 accounts of Jesus' life and ministry that includes words from Thomas. So John is one of the synoptic gospels. Can anyone name the others? John is one. They all run together, right there together. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Yes, they all run there together. But John seems to be the scriptures that mostly focus on the teachings of Jesus Christ, more so than any of the other gospels. And as I mentioned, it is the one that includes a lot of words from Thomas, unlike the others. Doubting Thomas. Thomas's response to Jesus' declaration to return to Judea after hearing about Lazarus' illness and subsequent death. I just mentioned that his response was, let's go. I know we may die, but let's go, and let's go see about whatever it is I need to see about. Knowing that Lazarus was dead, I'm sure in the disciples' mind, they figured there was nothing they could do about Lazarus, but Jesus already had it worked out. The lesson mentioned something about they didn't actually go all the way to the city. They stayed in a city, but it was Bethany, just outside of Jerusalem. And the lesson indicates it was only a couple of miles, maybe, or so away from Jerusalem. And at some point, Mary and Martha get word that he's coming. Now remember, this is a different time back then. There's no telephones, there's no Wi-Fi, there's no email. And this is kind of a loaded question, but how do you think Jesus was able to notify them that he was coming? What are some of the ways you can think of that Mary knew he was coming? And Martha. They knew he loved Lazarus, yes. But who got them the message? Because it says in the lesson, and I may chop up the words a little bit, that she was notified that Jesus was coming, one way or the other. What I will say is, because I said that was a loaded question, we spend too much time trying to figure out the why. He said it in the scriptures, I am that I am. That's not really all we need to know. We don't need to know how he notified Martha. She could have been praying, and he came into her prayer and told her he was coming. Maybe he snuck one of the disciples in there, but they were so afraid, it appeared. I don't think any of them went, but we don't know. But that's not for us to try to figure out either. I am that I am. The same way in life today, we try to figure out the why too much. Why this, why that, why are bosses acting up at work, why is the marriage not working, why are the kids acting up, instead of reminding ourselves that I am that I am, Jesus Christ. And he will work it out. This was a faith journey for Thomas, not just Thomas, but the disciples as well. Because while they believed in the resurrection, because they saw Jesus the first time, not all of them did. I don't remember what number did, but I do remember Thomas was not in that group of the first ones that saw Jesus. So when the disciples come back and they're telling Thomas about this, he don't want to believe it. He refuses to believe it, which I find in contrast. But you believe Jesus Christ and everything he can do, but you did not believe what the disciples were telling you. So what I'm getting at, and I know y'all getting ready to talk here in just a few minutes because we need to open this up. Do we always have to or not believe everything everybody tells us? We don't have to, because in this case, this was the disciples telling Thomas, this is what happened. We saw him. He appeared to us. And Thomas, I believe, and this can be up for discussion, I believe, while he believed in Jesus and the miracles he had already performed, I'm not believing what y'all say until I see it. I need to see it. We can't say that today, or we can say it, but it's not going to happen because we've been left with the Holy Spirit and depend on God's word, his promises, and our faith. That's what we have. That is our hand to the side or to visually see the scars. That's what we have to use. But in any event, Thomas would eventually come around. And I believe Jesus, the Christ, wants us to not wait till it gets to that point, to where we'll finally come around. We're supposed to be at a place where our faith is already strong, but we are human. I'm human. Can't speak for you all. I've learned over the years. In the early years, doubt. When is it going to happen? I want it right now. When you going to do it? How you going to do it? But over the years, and it's kind of surprising, I've never been a patient person, but I find myself being patient in prayers, and because I know what God can do. And even if he don't do it, it's not because he can't. May not be his will. But if you have that mindset, Thomas, back then, maybe thinking, well, I hear what they're saying. The miracle's enough. I believe he had already saw him raise some others from the dead or heal people who were terminally ill. But for this occasion, the people he rode with every day, they would not, as much as they said it to him, he would not believe what they said. Sister Steele?
Brother, when you look at that, Mary was a quiet. She knew about her son, but she was quiet. But Martha was the aggressive. Now, she knew what God could do, what Jesus could do and all. But the thing of it is, he just wasn't acting fast enough for her. And so that's why she was real aggressive to tell him, he's been there 4 days and, he's smelling and all this. But if you'd have been here now, this wouldn't have happened. So this is what it says, that she was always the aggressive type of person. And Jesus said to her, don't you know that I am the resurrection? I mean, she knew that. And he looks at her and he's telling her. She said, well, I know what you've done, but I need this right now. That's what she's doing. She wasn't doubting him or anything of that nature, but I want you to hurry up and get it done.
Thank you, Sister Steele. Yes, and I just mentioned that, Sister Grace. I just mentioned that a minute ago, at least for myself. I need to know when this is going to happen. I've already prayed. I need you to tell me right now, and then tell me how you're going to do it and all of that. Mary and Martha, while they believe, we know what happened, and we'll talk about it in a minute. What happened as soon as he got there is he was scolded by them too, but not for very long. Sister Grace?
Yes, I just wanted to bring out also, you had mentioned Thomas's name meaning twin, and the lesson said reveal another side of himself. And you look at you are kind, patient, humble, as we see you. But when you're on your job, you may say, stand at attention, but you're still the same person, but it's just another side.
Thank you, Sister Grace. I actually never thought of it that way,
Yes.
but that makes perfect sense since there's no mention, unless any of you know about it, about Thomas having a twin brother, Sister Kyles, about Thomas having a twin brother. That makes total sense.
From what I gathered, is Thomas did not necessarily have a twin. That was a nickname. And like Sister Grace was saying, that you have different sides of your personality. When you're at work, you are one way, and you are here, you're a different way. So I don't think there was physically a twin. It was just a nickname that they used to call him, and it just stuck. And then also in some of the Greek, there's something about the name and things like that, but I don't know. There was never really mentioned that there was a physical twin for Thomas. It was just they called him Didymus, but he didn't have, per se, a physical twin. It was a nickname.
Thank you, Sister Kyles. So do we often, sometimes, the way we are at work, try to bring that into the church? Yes, sometimes. Sometimes, when it applies, I guess. We have to know how to be able to divide those personalities. And it's not easy for everyone, especially if you're in a job of authority or something like that, military, law enforcement or whatever. You have to know how to adjust to the church people. But thank you for that explanation, Sister Grace and Sister Kyles. Pastor, we were just talking about Thomas and his nickname that he has of Didymus, referred to as twin. Now, I didn't find any place in the Bible where he had a twin brother, but Sister Grace just explained it as maybe more so of a personality. He's one way over here on this side of the fence, and now on the other side of the fence, he's this way, and for that, they called him this Didymus twin. Are you aware of a twin brother?
No, not a twin brother.
Okay. I'm learning too. I'm never going to get up here and act like I know everything that's going on about the lesson. And that's when we get the feedback from the congregation, it helps each and every one of us, even the person that's standing in my place. So thank you for those comments. So they arrive just outside the city of Jerusalem, Jesus and the 12 disciples. And Mary gets word that he's here, or he's close, but Lazarus is dead. One of you may have touched on it a minute ago, but do you believe, maybe Sister Steele, do you believe Mary and Martha knew that Jesus was going to heal Lazarus or bring him back from the death, or he could, or did they believe he was just there to pay his respects?
She believed that he could, but the fact is, she was just wondering why, you know, he didn't. When we talk about him as a twin, when we look at study the lesson, you know, they said Thomas was like a gloom caster, and he think he's going to die with Jesus when he told the others to come and let us go, because he's thinking he was willing to do that, and that was what, you know, Peter did. Simon Peter, when he told the Lord, you know, he would die for him. You know, you can't die, Lord. I'll do this for you. And so Thomas was feeling that way, but he just didn't know what he was saying and doing. But he felt it. We feel things sometimes, but it's just not in it at the moment.
Thank you, Sister Steele. He really did. So why was it so hard for him to believe what the disciples were telling him about the resurrection later on? Why was that so hard for him to believe? And for some, what'd you say, Sister Kyle? He's human. Yes, he's human. In modern day right now, we're human. And the lesson tells us it's nothing wrong with questioning God about your doubt, to go into prayer with him and talk to him about your doubt. And matter of fact, if I read the lesson right, it encourages that if you have doubt, to have a conversation with God to get you back on this faith journey and that you'll remove that doubt. So thank you, Sister Steele, for those comments, and Sister Kyle's once again. Just as you said, Sister Steele, it says, yes, Philip, another disciple, did not understand the meaning of the second part of Jesus' response. But they get to Jerusalem, pretty close to Jerusalem, and Mary gets word. And when Jesus arrives, what happens? I kind of gave it away a minute ago in relation to him, Mary, and Martha. What was the conversation immediately from Mary and Martha? Sister Kyle said she asked, why didn't he come earlier? And I think there's something that goes on to say, had you been here sooner, he would not have died. There's a little bit of doubt there, because you're talking to the Almighty, who I mentioned a while ago. I mentioned a minute ago that we spend too much time trying to figure out the why. Back then and right now in modern time, we spend too much time trying to figure out the why. And Jesus says, I am that I am. And no man comes to the Father except through him. If we will remind ourselves of that, then maybe we can relieve some of that doubt we tend to have from time to time. But we are human, as Sister Kyle stated, so it's going to, especially if the Lord puts or allows something real heavy to be on your heart. Sister Kyle's.
Brother Teacher, the thing about the doubt, we said it's okay to doubt, but we could not have unbelief. So we can doubt and question, but we still have to believe that, you know, that we have the faith in God, that he's going to do exactly what he said. So it's okay to doubt, but don't take it to the point where you don't believe. And I don't think that Thomas did that. He doubted in maybe a physical way of being a human, but he did his faith. And when we doubt, it's okay, but the doubt should also strengthen us to let us know, hey, because now I've seen this, I can have a stronger faith in God. Because now I didn't just hear about it, I saw it with my eyes. But God wants us to have faith, because if we knew everything, we wouldn't need faith. So he wants us to be strong in our faith, and there are times when we do doubt, but we can't take it to the point of unbelief.
Thank you, Sister Kyles. Pastor Smith. Sister Brigetta.
Brother Toes, I was just thinking about when you said about praying for something. I've been praying for something for a long time. And I've seen it come to pass. I've seen the strength that my daughter has, because I used to pray for strength all the time. Father, give her strength to deal with the things that she has to deal with. And then I started seeing her in a different light. And I was like, now it's time to start praying for mercy and grace, because he's given her the strength. She done did it. She done did it all. She's come out clean in a whistle when she wasn't supposed to. You know what I'm saying? She wasn't supposed to come out clean, but she came out clean. And she is showing me now that my prayers were answered. I kept praying, and I'm talking about months, maybe years. I've been praying the same prayer. And I said, God, when is he going to answer? I know something that's going to happen bad if you don't answer this prayer soon. He done worked it out. You know, she is stronger. Now she needs to be wiser, and she needs to have God's grace and mercy for the rest of it now. So when you do ask for something and it takes a while, you just have to hang in there and keep praying and keep that faith that something is going to happen. I just didn't know what. I wanted him to do it in my time, but he didn't. He didn't. I don't know why he did it the way he did it and drug it out the way it did. But at the end of the day, she's a better person right now. And like I said, all I do pray now is for mercy and grace. No more strength, because she's been through the trials and tribulations to show that she's a strong person, to show that she can do what she needs to do. She just needed the rest of it now.
Thank you.
I just wanted to briefly say that I believe one of the reasons we doubt is not doubting. You keep moving out the camera. You need be still. You get back over there, man.
I'm Deacon Toes and Robert Tucker today.
There you go. But the reason, what I think, the reason why we doubt God, because we got a preconceived notion of how God ought to move. And when he don't do it the way we think he should do it, we ain't doubting him, we're doubting his methods. And that's why we got to trust God. Because what Mary and Martha didn't understand, it wasn't about him being healed. It was about him coming back to life. God was going to use that to show, I got power even over death. But they didn't know that. And so, again, a lot of times we doubt God because he doesn't do what we think he ought to do and when we think he ought to do it. And so that's when we doubt him.
Thank you, Pastor. This lesson could have easily been titled, "O Ye of Little Faith," and had the same impact. But yes, I would ask why are we that way, but it's going to always come back to being human. Do you not think Jesus already knew his great friend Lazarus was going to die? We know, in fact, when Lazarus died and he got word of it, that he wept. We know that. But it was all part of a plan. I tell Sister Tunley, it was all part of a plan. We all have to go through something. It can be directly to us or it can be indirectly. It can be a family member or a close friend. But the whole key of it is to go through it. And I can tell you, at least in my experience, when God answers a prayer, he answers it, and it's almost never how I expected, but it was right on time with how he did it, and right in time with when he did it. We got to keep the faith. We've got to not be doubters to the point where we don't believe. Are there any other questions or comments? Brother Ogles.
Brother Teacher, now that Pastor's here, I'd like to ask that question that I asked him. Pastor, did Thomas, when Jesus came into the locker room, did Thomas actually touch his wounds before he believed? Jesus said, touch my wounds and believe. But then Jesus said something else to him, I can't remember it. but it says that Thomas believed. When Jesus spoke, Thomas believed. So did he actually touch the wounds?
Will you comment, Pastor? Because I can pick that up. We were actually just getting ready to go into that, Brother Ogles. But I'll answer that and say, yes, he touched the wound. Jesus allowed him to touch the wound in his side. He allowed him to see and or touch the scars on his hands in order for him to believe and have no doubt. And on that note, can I get someone to read the next set of verses, which is 24 through 29? It's John, the 20th chapter, 24 through 29, the NIV version.
If I can see it. Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. Is that it?
Yeah, but I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now Thomas, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said unto them, "Unless I see the nails marks in his hand, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas was with them. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Thomas said unto him, "My Lord, my God." Then Jesus told him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
Thank you. Verse 27 really stands out, and it says, "Then he said to Thomas, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side." And I would imagine Jesus did something like this. Stop doubting and believe. Kind of like, because you know, you've been with me. You've seen what I've done. Stop doubting. And at that moment, the lesson tells us that Thomas's response was, "My Lord and my God." And at that point, Jesus blessed him, and I guess in Thomas's mind, he was no longer doubting Thomas, but Sister Kyle's. But that was a moment for him, a moment that we won't get in this modern day and time, Sister Kyle's.
I think also that is the key in 27, that he asked, Jesus told him to do it, but he told him to stop doubting. And Thomas said, it says, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." So I don't know if it infers or tells us that he touched, because he could have just seen and believed. He didn't have to, but Jesus offered to allow him to touch him. So I don't think it's clear 100% to me that he touched him, but he saw. And in verse 29, it says, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." So it's kind of open to me. I don't think we can draw a solid conclusion that he touched him, but he did see and he did believe.
Thank you, Sister Kyles. I think I can probably sum that up, what you just said, because that's interesting. Go back to the title. I believe it when I see it. And he saw it. So whether he touched or not, yeah, that's not specifically, Brother Ogles, it's not specifically in the lesson, but Jesus did offer that. But then, yes, in the very next verse, Jesus says, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." And really, that's all you need. That's all Thomas needed. Sister Grace?
Read a lesson. Jesus, let me get it here. Look at verse 25. All right. 27, I'm sorry. Then he said to Thomas, this is Jesus speaking directly to Thomas. He said, put your fingers here. See my hands. So he touched him because Jesus had told him. He said, put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe.
Thank you, Sister Grace. Yes, I think what Sister Kyles was illustrating was that it can be inferred that that's what happened, but it doesn't specifically state that that's what happened. But what definitely happened is you've seen me, and now you believe. And of course, you got to go back to the title of the lesson. I believe it when I can see it. So Thomas definitely saw it, and he believed. Can anyone think of a time, as we try to wrap this lesson up, when you followed Jesus, even when it didn't make sense? A time in your life when you followed Jesus, irregardless of what you had in front of you that didn't make any sense in the world, but you followed him anyway. Anybody got a story they want to tell?
This is a story a long time ago when Brianna was younger, when they were going out to the clubs. I had put her friends in a car, and we got to the club. Jesus kept telling me, pray for them, pray, just pray. So they looking at me laughing like, why are you, and they said, what else? And I said, yeah, we're going to pray. So I prayed for them, and probably about an hour and a half later, they called me and said someone came into the club shooting. And someone hovered over Brianna, but they got him out the door, and they ran down the street. And she called me. She said, Mom, I'm so glad you prayed for us.
Thank you. And so you didn't know what you were praying for, but God put it on your mind to pray for them. And he does that for each and every one of us today. But we have to tell stories like that. The lesson tells us there's stories like that and other testimonies so that others can believe who Jesus Christ really is. Because he's not coming down here to have any of us put our hand in his side. When he does come, he's coming to gather up his children and take us back up with him. So thank you for that comment. Are there any others? Can think of a time that you followed Jesus even though it didn't make sense. I won't get into, because you all have already heard it, my work story at the previous employer, but no part of that deal made sense to me because I'm responsible for some people. This person messed up. He clearly messed up. And you want to hold me accountable more than you're holding him. I had a time with that. I really had a problem with that. But I prayed about it. Oh, Pastor said stay right here, didn't he? I forgot. Trying to move, but I got you, Nikki. I'll stay right here. But I prayed about it. You got to be careful when you pray, because God answers prayers. And what I would find was that this situation was putting too much stress on me. I know I'm responsible for this particular unit, and I know that this guy that I supervised screwed up big time. But why are you trying to punish me more than him? Well, you're over the division is what I was always told. But I trusted God, and it made no sense to me whatsoever. I trusted God, and what I asked God was, whatever your will is, I submit to it. whatever they going to do. I knew I wasn't going to lose my job or anything like that, but I didn't want to go through it because it didn't make sense. But I trusted in God. And what I asked God was to just please not allow man to break my peace again. And he did that. You know, a year later when I retired, I was happy. When I retired on good terms, and I made it a point to get along with everybody, including those that I think were trying to wrong me, all the way, and even up to this day, still do that, because I believe that's how God wants me to be, and it's how he wants us to be. Let go of those grudges against people, and because you know, the word tells us he's not going to forgive you if you can't forgive them for what they've done. And I know it can be some pretty horrific things that some people, oh, I was about to move. Some pretty horrific things that people can do to us and that we can do to others. It's not just us. I mean, it's not just them doing it to us. We've done some stuff to some folks too. But the main idea is to, when Jesus comes, you want to be able to know in your mind that there's not a single person on the earth that I hate. And I think about that a lot because, Brigetta, when we was growing up out there in the 73084, if y'all don't know what that is, Bobcat land, mindset was different. I was going to church, but that was because Grandpa made me go. But mindset was totally different. And but it's an experience, and nobody gets to where we're trying to get right off the bat. I believe some get close. God touches some at very early ages, and they get close. But for the majority, most of us, we have to go through those experiences. Thomas had to go through this experience of doubt while he still believed in Jesus. Are there any other questions or comments? If there are no other questions or comments, we want to thank Deacon Tolles for giving us that lesson, so just give him a round of applause. Good morning! Isn't that how Robert Tucker does it? I'm Robert Tucker now, I'm not Deacon Tolles. Thank you, Deacon Tolles, for that lesson you gave us. I believe it when I can see it. Let me say this because I'm just so glad to see Michael Jr. in the house. And a lot of you all don't know, that's what MJ stands for out on that poster. I understand that's what the family calls him, MJ. But most of the church folks will ask me, who's MJ? There he is, so good to see you back. This was a great lesson. I hope that it touched everybody that could hear it in a mighty way. Again, I want to thank our social media friends who were listening online, who may have had questions, but just, couldn't ask them in that particular venue. You can certainly call the church with any questions that you may have, and we can definitely get those answered. On that note, we'll go ahead and end Sunday School. I thank you for your participation and your feedback, and may God continue to bless each and every one of you.
Amen. Those that want to shift over, you may do so.